Hello, good morning, students. We are going to discuss a very important topic of your syllabus, industrial policy. What is industrial policy? The term industrial policy refers to the government's policy towards establishment of industry, their working and management. It means it includes all those policies, procedures, regulations which decides the pace and pattern of industrialization. Okay. Industrial policy is very important from the viewpoint of country's industrial development. It decides the pattern of industrialization. So far as Indian economy is concerned, we had many industrial policy like industrial policy in 1956, industrial policy in 1977, 1980, and latest industrial policy in 1991. Here, very important points to be noted. Why industrial policy of 1991 is different from all other earlier policies, because it is considered as economic reforms, or आप लोग सब जानते हैं the policy is also known as a liberalization policy, or policy is also known as LPG model. अब तक जो इकोनॉमी में था उसके ऊपर रिफॉर्म्स किया गया. The shift from public sector to private sector, the shift from control to openness of economy. From this point of view, industrial policy of 1991 is very important policy, and it is considered as a part-breaking contribution of Dr. Manmohan Singh so far as concerned with Indian economy. Okay, so today in this lecture we will discuss why we need to introduce industrial policy and why इकोनॉमिक रिफॉर्म्स. क्या इसके कैसी सिचुएशन थी उसके वजह से हमको 1991 में ये पॉलिसी अनाउंस करनी पड़ी. आप लोगों ने सबने पढ़ा होगा कि इंडस्ट्रियल पॉलिसी वाज अनाउंस्ड बाय द गवर्नमेंट ऑन 24th July 1991. At that time, there was a Congress government. Mr. Narsi Rao was the Prime Minister of India, and economist Dr. Manmohan Singh was the Finance Minister of India. को हमको 1991 में ही क्यों जरूरत पड़ी कि हमको वो इकोनॉमिक रिफॉर्म्स करना है. So why economic reforms? First is lack of foreign exchange reserve. In 1991, in 90s, due to Gulf War, Gulf War शुरू हो गया था. So due to Gulf War, there is considerable increase in prices of crude oil. और क्रूड ऑयल की प्राइस बढ़ेगी तो क्रूड ऑयल का पेमेंट हमको किस में करना पड़ेगा? इन इंटरनेशनल करेंसी, इन डॉलर. सो ड्यू टू इंक्रीज इन प्राइसेस ऑफ पेट्रोलियम प्रोडक्ट्स, और हमारी जो इंपोर्ट है उसमें सबसे बड़ा शेयर किसका है? क्या? पेट्रोलियम प्रोडक्ट्स का, क्रूड ऑयल का. So due to Gulf War, there is considerable increase, very high hike in prices of crude oil. So we had to make payment in foreign exchange reserve. अपना this is international currency order. So due to this, our foreign exchange reserve was at bottom level, very limited. So far as data is concerned, we had only 2,382 crore in our foreign exchange reserve, and it was even not enough to meet 3 weeks import bill. हमारा 3 हफ्ते का import bill पे कर सके उतना भी foreign exchange reserve हमारे पास नहीं था. Okay, so Indian economy is facing crisis of foreign exchange reserve due to very high price of crude oil, petroleum products, because of Gulf War. और Gulf second क्या हुआ कि there is also substantial decline in private remittance due to Gulf War. वो भी रीजन है कि प्राइवेट हमारा जो रेमिटेंस है उसमें भी डिक्लाइन हुआ था गल्फ वॉर के बाद. Next reason is high inflation rate. That time inflation rate was very high. It was about 17%, which is considered as very very high inflation rate. And inflation rate is also very high. This is also one of the reasons why we need to adopt a industrial policy. And second other reason is fiscal deficit. हमारा फिस्कल डेफिसिट भी बहुत बढ़ गया था. फिस्कल डेफिसिट वाज अबाउट 8.4% ऑफ जीडीपी. ओके, दिस इज द रीजन व्हाई कि ऑन द वन हैंड आवर import is much higher than our export. Expenditure is much higher than the sources of our revenue. So fiscal deficit was about 8.4% of the GDP, and our foreign exchange reserve was also very very limited. Therefore, India had to take a loan of about $7 billion from IMF and World Bank. So IMF and World Bank had given loan to us, but on the condition that India should open its economy. इंडिया को लिबरलाइजेशन अडॉप्ट करना पड़ेगा. ओके, दिस वाज द कंडीशन. सो दीज आर ऑल रीजंस व्हाई वी नीड टू अडॉप्ट इंडस्ट्रियल पॉलिसी ऑफ 1991, or why we have to go for economic reforms to remove the existing crisis in 1990s. Okay, therefore on 24th July 1991, under the Professor Dr. Manmohan Singh has announced new industrial policy, and new industrial policy is also known as LPG model. It's a famous word: liberalization, privatization, and globalization. We will try to understand the term liberalization. What is liberalization? Liberalization comes from liberty, more liberal. Matlab, it is removal of minimizing the restrictions and regulations with active involvement of private sector. मतलब तो ये कहा जाए कि कंज्यूमर्स पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू और प्रोड्यूसर्स पॉइंट व्यू हम लोग को ये वी हैव रिड्यूस आवर रूल्स एंड रेगुलेशंस, restriction, minimizing restrictions, okay, in order to achieve higher economic growth rate, in order to achieve economic development, minimizing the restrictions, rules and regulations, etc. Privatization. Privatization matlab transfer of ownership, control and management from government to private sector. Indian economy before 1991, we had too much emphasis on our public sector. Public sector में हमारा investment भी ज़्यादा था, emphasis भी ज़्यादा था, हम लोग ने बहुत investment किया था. But in 1991, it is public sector. After 1991, public sector has been given indirect role in the development, while private sector has been given direct role in development. So transfer of ownership, उसके लिए डिसइन्वेस्टमेंट का हमने प्रोसेस किया और अगर अदर प्रोसेस किया, मगर इन शॉर्ट इट इज ट्रांसफर ऑफ ओनरशिप, ट्रांसफर ऑफ प्रॉपर्टीज फ्रॉम पब्लिक सेक्टर टू प्राइवेट सेक्टर. ग्लोबलाइजेशन. Liberalization is precondition for privatization and globalization. Try to understand. But there is a difference between liberalization and globalization. Liberalization is a narrow term, minimizing the restriction, raising the restrictions. But globalization matlab integration of the economies, integration of the countries for trade, for economic benefit, for social benefit, for political benefit, etc., etc. Okay, so it is integration of all the economies and countries. Okay, this is globalization. So it is a broad term. Okay, so in short, globalization means one global market for all the nation, or here the whole world is like a global village. Okay, so this is the meaning of globalization. So this is we have discussed liberalization, privatization and globalization. Now we will discuss what are the objectives of the industrial policy in 1991 to build on the gains already made. 1991 में हमने पॉलिसी इंडस्ट्रियल पॉलिसी इंट्रोड्यूस की, अनाउंस की. उसके पहले हमारे पास 4 डिकेड्स का इकोनॉमिक प्लानिंग था, और 4 डिकेड्स के इकोनॉमिक प्लानिंग में जितने भी हमने अचीवमेंट किए हैं, जितना भी हमारे पास गेन्स है, उसको बिल्ड करना है. बिकॉज from 50, starting from 51 to 1991, the Indian economy has made remarkable progress in industrial agricultural sector as well as industrial sector and service sector. So हमारे पास जो भी गेन है उसको बिल्ड करना है, उसको आगे लेके जाना है. This is the first objective, to build the gains and already made by the Indian economy during the 4 decade of economic planning. Next, to correct the distortions that may have crept in. वो creep का past participle है. Of course, we have made remarkable progress during 1951 to 1991. But कितने distortions हुए हैं? There is a mal-allocation of resources, etc. So this policy, one of the objective of this policy is to correct all the distortions which had crept in during the planning period, 4 decades of planning period. Next, to maintain sustained growth in productivity and gainful employment. Obviously, productivity, so far as productivity is concerned, the progress of Indian economy was very slow. So, to maintain sustained growth in productivity. मगर industrial sector में थोड़ा हमारा growth हुआ है. So, during the period of 85 to 19 or 80 to 95, etc. So, we have to sustain this growth. At the same time, gainful employment. In the earlier video, we discussed that one of the biggest shortcoming of industrialization in India, that it is not able to provide gainful employment to large section of population. So even after the significant progress of industrial sector in India, even today large amount of population is depending on agriculture. तो ये भी objective था कि how to provide gainful employment. And last, it's very important, to attain international competitiveness. This is one of the most important point. India was a closed economy before 1991. So our industries, India had itself a protected market for our industries. So उसको efficiency बढ़ाने के लिए वो competitiveness इतनी नहीं थी, because it has not to face competition from multinational companies or other foreign companies which are more efficient than Indian companies. But once Indian economy has opened its economy for multinational companies or all other companies of the world, Indian companies have also to increase their competitiveness to survive in the market. Okay? और वो exactly हुआ है. हम लोग earlier video में discuss किया था कि Indian economy has not only survived, Indian companies has not only survived, but they have also increased their capacity. They have enhanced their competitiveness, and now they are also progressing very well in international market. So this is also one of the objective, to attain international competitiveness. Okay, so industrial policy of 1991 is the most important policy so far as concerned with all the industrial policy, because it is transforming the role of public sector. It is also the policy which is known for delicensing policy. Okay, so in the next video we will discuss all the features of industrial policy of 1991. आज के लिए इतना रहेगा. Thank you very much.